Hey, good day, folks. Welcome to another episode of Answers Life. I hope everyone's doing great today. Well, uh, as the title of the video is going to most likely be titled, Make It About Yourself. And this video is going to be for all of you that work a 9 to 5, that don't like your job, and you don't like the idea of working a 9 to 5. And by the way, either do I. I don't like the idea of working a 9 to 5. But my attitude is if I gotta work a 9 to 5, the least I'm gonna do, and I would advise all of you who are currently watching to do as well, is make it about yourself. How do you make your job about yourself? Well, number one, you gotta get into an occupation that you desire to work. And preferably number two, the pay needs to be enough to where you can cover all your basic expenses and a little extra. Preferably, that's what you want, financially speaking. Another thing is, while you're working this job, if the opportunity presents itself, learn what you can learn. And in many cases, whatever skills that you learn at your current employer, you can take those skills and maybe you can get another 9 to 5 that pays a little better. And with that higher pay, it might get you a little closer to that level of financial, whatever level you need financially in order to quit working 9 to 5 and to do your own thing. Maybe that higher paying position can't even talk, will get you there a little quicker. And another thing is when you make your job about yourself, I know for some of you who are people pleasers, this might be a little easier said than done, but for the sake of everything that's good in your life, don't worry about what anybody thinks of you. Don't worry about what anybody thinks of you. Now, obviously, if you're working a job that's super miserable, the people there are just super miserable, kind of like what happened to me a few months ago at the job I walked off of. I mean, I know that they tell you before you quit a job, it's always a good idea to give a 2 week notice. And I've discussed this several videos ago. I want to say maybe about a couple of weeks or so ago. But my rule of thumb is I only give a 2 week notice to an employer that I like. Like if I'm working a job I like and I'm working among people that I like, if there's even a if there I mean if it's one of those type of companies to where, you know what, if jobs became hard to come by, if I'm working for a company that is a company that I would potentially go back and work for if I find myself looking for work again, kind of like what happened to me, that's the only time that I would advise anyone to give their employer a 2 week notice. If you're working at a company to where either A, you dislike the work, B, you dislike the staff, C, maybe it's a mixture of both. I know some of you are going to feel some kind of way about me giving this advice, but my advice is do not give a 2 week notice. Go ahead, pack your crap, and walk out. I mean, I know when I made my video 2.5 months ago, the video is titled "I walked off my job. Now what?" I mean, there were a lot of people that were in support of my decision, but there were also some people that criticize my decision to just up and leave. Because there are people talking about, oh man, it's hard to get a job. You should have stuck it out until you got another job. You never leave a job until you get another job. Ideally, that is a good rule of thumb to follow, especially in this current economy. But my attitude is, if you're super miserable, you gotta protect your peace of mind. You gotta protect your sanity. You gotta protect your mental health. Because if your mental health is bad, chances are it's not gonna be long before it begins to affect your physical health. So, you gotta put like I said, you gotta make your job about yourself. If you're working for an employer that you don't like, walk off. If it's real bad, just pack up and walk off. Or at the end of the day, walk off. At the end of the week, walk off. Don't continue to go back to a employer that you don't like. I mean, life is too short to live to work a job you don't like. And another rule of thumb of making your job about yourself is understand one thing when it comes to human resource. Human resource is not your friend. I mean, human resource, they have a specific job to perform as well. So, for those of you that still think human resources are your friend, they're not. Sometimes, depending on your situation, human resource might be extremely helpful. Sometimes, depending on your situation, they ain't gonna do shit for you. I mean, at the end of the day, you gotta make that decision on. At the end of the day, it's your decision on whether or whether or not you're gonna stay working that job or not. And another rule of thumb of making the job about you is, now me personally, I don't engage in the gossip of the company. For those of you that engage in the gossip of the company, I would advise you quit doing that as of today. I don't, sometimes when you work somewhere, people, you might have a few employees that might have like a gathering, like maybe they have like some kind of a outing on Friday to where maybe they might go to Pizza Hut or whatever. Now, quite frankly, I never get involved with any of that. I just prefer to come in, do what I'm supposed to do, and then when it's time to go home, I'm going home. I mean, I don't mean to come off like a asshole, but if I do, I really don't care. But when it comes to gatherings of other employees, my attitude is real simple. I do not care how your family is doing. I don't even care how you're doing. I mean, if we work good together, which that's my goal when I'm working a job, cool, great. But outside of work, I'm not gonna tell you what I like to do in my personal time. I don't care what you do on your personal time. I do not care about none of your family. I I mean, and I'm not gonna tell you nothing about my family. So my attitude is, if anyone comes up to me and they ask me, "Hey, Andrew, do you want to, join us for some pizza?" I was like, "No, thank you. I will politely decline because when I'm off the clock, I got other things to do that are way more important than hanging around a bunch of people that most likely don't give two fucks about me anyway." I mean, look at what happened to that lady at Wells Fargo. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen on a regular basis at a lot of companies, but sadly, in this day and age, it is a reality. It is a reality. So when I work any job, 9 times out of 10, I stay to myself. And I find when I stay to myself, the stress level at a job tends to be a lot lower because I'm not running around trying to digest anybody else's BS. Now, fortunately, at the job I'm working now, the people who I work with, for the most part, they alright. We all get along together. Now, working the type of work I do, I work by myself anyway, so it's all good. So even though other people might come in and they might have a shitty day for whatever the fuck reason, I don't really care because I'm working by myself anyway. So as long as we can at least keep it cordial, that's all I care about. Because at the end of the day, I make my job about myself. If I get off into being a people pleaser, I'm gonna drive myself crazy. And now there was a time, and this is way back when I was a teenager. My first job was working at Burger King, and I would say for a year and a half, give or take, I was one of those employees that were always trying to please other people. I learned back when I was a teenager to not be a people pleaser. I learned back in the day to make my job about myself. Now, I'm not going to lie, over the years, I've had to work on myself a little more. I had to critique that skill of making my job about myself. I had to work on a few things in terms of my personality. I ain't gonna lie, because hey, back in the day, I was that type of person that was an asshole, and even to this day, I still could be like that. But I'm to the point in my life now where if I really dislike a job, I'm dipping. I'm walking. I'm not wasting time putting in 2 week notices and shit. And I can't. And even though I'm working a regular 9 to 5 right now, even though I may not be earning the most amount of money in the world, I can't tell you guys how appreciative I am of having my old job back. I mean, not only am I working a position that I enjoy working, but for the most part, the people who I work with, they're decent. And on top of that, it's within an hour of where I live, so I didn't even have to worry about relocating. And I can't tell you guys how appreciative I am of that. And I'm also appreciative of the fact that my old job up in Indiana, would have took me back half when I decided to leave Alabama and go back up to Indiana. I'm appreciative of that too. And I'm not gonna lie, there was a time now back when I was making all them other videos of my job interview experiences and all that, and uh, just talking about how I might leave Alabama. I'm not gonna lie. At that point, I was losing faith in looking for work here in Alabama, which was the reason why I reached out to my old employer in Indiana in the first place. But despite the fact that I was losing faith at that time, I still kept on plugging away. I still kept on thinking of places that I could go and apply that were not online. That were places where I just jump in my car and I go and I apply in person. So, despite some of the videos I made that appeared as if I was going to give up looking for work here in Alabama, I still kept on plugging away. I didn't give up. Now, some of y'all is probably thinking I was going to put that towel in and I was going to dip up out of Alabama. And although I was close to doing that, I just couldn't allow myself to just give up like that. I had to keep it going. Because, like I told you guys before, living in a warmer climate, owning a house, sitting on some land, has always been my dream for a long time. And now that I'm finally able to realize that dream, just, I didn't want to easily give that dream up and go back up to Indiana. Not that Indiana is a bad place. Indiana is a wonderful place. As I told you guys before, I've had wonderful experiences up in Indiana. But as far as where I want to live, I'd rather be here in Alabama. So sometimes making your job about yourself, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it may not be easy to make your job about yourself. Now, most people, they move to places because of jobs. And to some extent, let's be realistic. There's certain places I'm not going to move to because the economy is trash. And it would be harder for me to earn a living. But also, when it, as where most people, how do I put it? Like for me, I mean, yeah, when I move somewhere, I do try to keep the job market in mind. But there's another part of me that's thinking, okay, well, if I have to make this adjustment and that adjustment, I don't mind doing that in order to live somewhere I like to live. Prime example, living where I'm living now. I know a lot of people that would be like, nah, man, I ain't driving no hour each way to get to work. That's crazy. I mean, here in Alabama, most people are not driving an hour each way to work. Well, I don't know about most people, but I know a lot of people that I talk to. I tell them I drive an hour to my job. They look at me like I don't lost my damn mind. But my attitude is, in order for me to live somewhere that I like to live, if I have to drive an hour each way to work, you know, I'm willing to drive. I mean, that's a very small sacrifice, in my opinion, that I'm willing to take to live somewhere that I like, that's safe, that's quiet, to where I have most of what I want when it comes to my housing situation. So that's another way that I personally will make my job about myself. I don't move somewhere strictly based on the job or based on the job market because honestly, if I wanted to move somewhere strictly based on jobs, it wouldn't be in Alabama. I'm gonna just keep it real. If I wanted to move somewhere strictly based on jobs, there's a lot of other places that have a much stronger economy than Alabama. But I pick Alabama because for what I'm looking for in my housing arrangement, I can afford to live in Alabama. So I don't know if I'm making any sense. Hopefully I am. Like, I guess I'll give you this example. If I was looking to move somewhere solely based on the job market, I probably, without hesitation, would have gave up on staying in Alabama, and I would have attempted to try to sell this house, and I would have been up in Indiana right now. But like I told you guys, I'd rather be here for the reasons that I've discussed earlier in the video. And I've discussed these reasons on other videos as well. So like when it comes to the job, I mean like when it comes to where I live, it's not only because of the job market. It's also other things as well. Like let's say the job I was working now told me that, you know what, if I want to keep my current position, I'm going to have to move to Minnesota. Now I know some people they would probably follow that job and go to Minnesota if the pay was right. Matter of fact, let me give you a better example. Let's say I was working a job that let me think here. Let's say within a company that I work, an opportunity that was make to where I would be making, let's say, six figures came around. Now, six figures is a shitload of money for someone living in Alabama. But let's say an opportunity that was paying six figures came around. And my employer then came to me and he said, "Hey, Andrew, you can work this position. It's a six figure paying position. But here's the catch. The catch is you got to move up to Michigan." Well, some of you, I'm pretty sure many of you, especially in this current economy, you probably will go ahead and move to Michigan and work that six figure position because they're thinking, okay, well, yeah, I like living in Alabama better than Michigan, but if you're going to pay me, if the company is going to pay me a six figure income to work a position up in Michigan, then I'm going to go to Michigan. Well, this is where me and many of you will probably differ. If my company were to come and approach me and they were to offer me a six figure position if I was willing to relocate to Michigan, I would politely decline and tell them no. I have no desire to live in Michigan. I like where I'm living here and I'll just keep my position. I'm not going to Michigan. No, thank you. And that's another way that I personally will make my job about myself. I'm not going to move somewhere that I do not want to live for the sake of money. I'm not going to do it. I mean, nothing against Michigan, but do I want to live in Michigan all year round? Hell no. So six figures wouldn't be enough. I mean, there's no amount of money that would be enough for me to live in Michigan full time. None. Now, if it was a situation to where I can make a crap load of money living in Michigan for maybe 1 year, okay. But if I had to live in Michigan for the rest of my career in order to earn that six figure income, I wouldn't do it because I would not be happy living in cold ass Michigan. No, thank you. They can have that shit up there. So that's another way that I make my job about myself. In fact, personally, I wouldn't encourage no one to permanently move somewhere where they don't want to live in the name of a job. Because as some of you know, your job might tell you, okay, you got to move to Michigan. And then you've been up in Michigan for, let's say, a couple of years, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, your employer lays you off. So you lose your job, and guess what? You're still stuck up in Michigan, freezing your ass off for 7 months out the year or so. You know you'd rather live somewhere in the South, but you stuck up in Michigan, no job. You probably then went up there and purchased yourself a home, so now you have a mortgage. So, hey, now you're screwed. Now, in order for you to move back to a place where you want to live, you're going to have to spend a crap load of money that you probably don't have in order to sell your home and to move out of Michigan. So, for reasons like that, I don't encourage anybody to move to a state where or an area where you don't want to live in the name of a job. Because as many of you know, these corporations are not loyal. There's a YouTuber on here. I'm pretty sure some of you are familiar with him. His name is Orlando Miners. Yeah, his name is Orlando Miners, and he has a saying: "These corporations are not loyal." So, whenever you get a job and your job tells you, hey, we'll give you this position, it pays X amount of money if you move to whatever state. Now, if it's a state or an area that you don't want to live, I wouldn't do it if I were you. So that's all I got on this one. I mean, I could probably add a little bit more to the video, but we're already over 25 minutes into the video. So hopefully you guys got something out of the video, or at least you got a little bit of amusement. On that note, if you like what I do, give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel. Feel free to leave comments in the comment section. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank every last one of you for tuning in and watching my videos and interacting in the comment section. So stay blessed. I'll catch you guys on the next one.